Hey, what's up? Welcome. You are listening to TC the G Radio Season 3, Episode 4. I am TC the G, broadcasting directly from Tijuana, Baja California. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are going to have a great time. The title of today's episode, Chrisean Rock. I decided to speak about Chrisean Rock today because she's a good example of what not to be. So let's get right into it. The first thing I want to say is that these are the examples that the media feeds us. They constantly feed us very toxic examples, and it's very dangerous for our youth because they're the ones that are watching. And keep in mind, a lot of this youth, yes, a lot of people like to say, oh, it's the parents' responsibility to raise their kids, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it is their responsibility, but when they have to work long hours in order to, take care of their kids, the ones raising their kids is literally like the TV. And it's a sad thing, but it's the real thing, right? It's what's really going on in the world. I'm lucky enough to be able to stay home at this point with my daughter, and I hope that I'll be able to continue be at home. I'm planning on working from home. That way I can still be around with my son, with my first child. Unfortunately, I had to work as a single parent. So a lot of the responsibility of the money and everything was fell on me. So I had to work a lot, a lot, a lot. And I guess you can say I wasn't around as much as I would like to have been. I still, I pushed my saqué adelante a mi niño and everything was, at this point we made it. But would I have liked to be around him more now looking back? Yes, of course. That would have been the the ideal to be around him as much as possible or his dad, because at the end of the day, he was with the babysitter a lot, and maybe a lot of that time with the babysitter, he could have been spending it with his dad since we were not together. But anyhow, so back to the Krishan Rock. So these examples that the media provides to us, they're completely ignorant examples, right? They put in front of us, I don't know, let's say prostitutes, strippers, they put people like Krishan Rock. And I don't mean to say this like, oh, to bash them. It's just not the right examples to put on TV for our kids to follow. Everybody has the right to live their life the way they want to live it. Of course, within a certain parameter, if you're hurting kids or anything like that, that's not something that you should be free to do, right? But everything else, like, you can do with your life whatever you want or work wherever you want to work, right? If you want to work at the red light district, at a strip club, that's your thing. The thing here is that the media makes it, glamorizes it, and kids are impressionable. So whatever they see, they're going to want to mimic or they're going to think it's okay because they see it on TV. So it kind of desensitizes them and they see it as the normal, which it really is not the normal to live that lifestyle. Like prostitutes and strippers, they're pretty much exchanging energy with strangers all day long. They're not giving themselves that self-respect and that value that our kids deserve. And maybe they have issues, maybe they have their own traumas or whatever, but again, these should not be the examples we give to the children. And again, back to Krishan, her example is more like of a toxic, being a toxic woman, being uh, a violent woman. When I started following her, or just it was she was on TV and it was like it was being blasted to us right on the TV, and yeah, it was entertaining for a while. But as I started seeing comments on her posts, people will be like, "Oh, she's a star, she's a star," and I started thinking, she's is she a star or is she just famous for being a very violent person? There's a difference, being a star and being famous. Being a star has to do with skill, with knowing how to do something skillful, artistic. But the way she rose to fame was more about beating girls up, being violent, right? Being like the most violent in her group, in that Blue Girls Club, which is definitely not a good example for our children, for our little girls. I believe the majority of that show was on OnlyFans, but you can still see clips and things like that, on regular YouTube, Instagram, and things like that. So it wasn't like completely restricted from our kids to be able to see it. So that's the one thing that I was like, yeah, I was entertained for a little bit. But thinking about it is like, this is not, I started thinking, like, wow, this is not something our little girls should be watching, or little boys, thinking that this is the norm of what it takes to be liked by everybody or loved because, again, you're famous, right? So you're admired by many, many people. And again, when you're young, you want that, you want to be accepted by your peers. Another thing that I thought was very way off was, like I spoke on my last episode about her baby, Chrisean Jesus Malone Jr., how she went through her pregnancy drinking alcohol. And again, I'm not a doctor, but as a nurse, the signs that I saw, I studied parts of medicine. I'm not like a doctor, so I didn't go like all the way to study like medications and things like that. But as far as the body goes and the way his little body looked, it was like he was giving me an air of fetal alcohol syndrome, which is caused when women drink during their pregnancy. And it's very sad. It's very sad because it's actually I would be ashamed if I couldn't sacrifice my own pleasures for my baby's health. It just seems like a very selfish thing to do. It doesn't seem, it is a very selfish thing to do. And we don't know what kind of trauma she has. It looks like she has like a very, very bad, um, she had a very, very bad childhood, but it all depends, everything falls to your willpower and to to who you want to be. There's a lot of people who are mistreated and, go through a bad time during their childhood years as well, but they end up being the opposite, right? Right? They end up just, if they grew up with an alcoholic parent, they grow up not drinking alcohol. I mean, they end up not drinking alcohol in their adult years. So it really comes down to what you choose, right? So we cannot just say, "Oh, she went through this," and use it as an excuse. When you're 24, 23, 22 years old, yes, you don't know everything perfectly, but you should be on it, right? You should be on it of on wanting to do the best for your kid. Either sometimes I feel like either she's a slow learner, like she's kind of like dumb, and no disrespect to people who are actually, have mental delays, but I mean either she's not that smart or she just doesn't care. You know what I mean? If you care, you think about these things. Unless she's not that smart again, that she can even see what results can happen, what effect can come from this cause, from her drinking alcohol. If she can't even see the future, she can't see results, it seems like she might be a little, not that smart. But at the same time, we all know what's right and what's wrong. I mean, when you're that old, 25, 23, 24, you already know the basics of what's right and what's wrong, right? Okay, again, you don't have everything down perfectly, but you have the bases. You should already know the baby, you need to be not drinking. And when you go to your checkups when you're pregnant, they tell you these things. So either she ignored what they were telling her, you know, and that's either because she's that ignorant or she just didn't care. And to me, it's more like you just didn't care because they were educating you about drinking and smoking during pregnancy. if you were going to your checkups, you know? Another thing that I have noticed that she does is that she uses the Bible a lot. Like when you see her online, like she's over there praying and using the Bible and God's child. That's the one thing that I'm like baffles me about these celebrities or some celebrities or some people that are, known online, that some of them are like fake spiritual people. Because if you were really into the Bible, if you were really like trying to do all of that, you would act like it, you know? It's like I believe Cardi B as well. She like, oh, God did this, God did that for me. I don't think God helps you be uh it's the one guiding you to a stripper life or guiding you to beat up women or guiding you to those things. You are or making music that is not for children. Yeah, you know they're going to listen to it. God did not put you in that path. You chose that path yourself. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's this is God." God is only here to protect us and to give us wisdom. Everything else is our choice. We have free will. So you are able to make the future that you wish to do based on your choices and decisions. God doesn't get involved in your choices and decisions. If you pray, He protects you. If you pray for guidance, He'll give you wisdom. Now, everything else, your choices, you have molded your own life through your choices. We have to take responsibility for our life. We cannot give that responsibility to God. That's our responsibility. That's why we have free will. Another thing that I wanted to speak about was how she tattooed Blueface's face on her face. It looks like she had already covered up the one on her neck, but I guess then it started getting back together or whatever, and then she ended up tattooing it on the side of her face. Now that tattoo is huge. It's almost like her whole half of her face. So I was thinking like, wow, to me it seems like she wants to almost put his whole face on her face. Like like she has lost or she's kind of like giving herself up this much to the point where she's like she has almost like no self identity. Everything is blue face. Even to the point where her she's almost tattooing his whole face on her face. So next thing next thing you know, she's gonna have like it's gonna be blue face on her face. Like I'm just like, wow, that's ridiculous. And a lot of people try to compare Blueface to a pimp, and sometimes I'm like, damn, I kind of agree sometimes because how can he have like so much power over somebody? And I'm not saying that she's innocent because when you're in those type of relationships, pimp and prostitute relationships, they're both equally in the wrong, right? She is she's helping the situation by not leaving, by staying, you know? Like she said in one of her videos, I don't want to get saved. Okay, she wants to have her. That's the life she wants. She wants that life. And that's her thing, right? And again, that's not it really is none of my business. My business here is the image that the media feeds our children or what they're making the norm for our children. This is not the norm. Being a violent woman is not the norm. It's not the way that you should try to make a living for yourself. And it's even her whole persona is like it's like she's very manly, like she wants to be a man. So she's like a broken character, I guess you can say. She does have a lot of healing to do. I'm thinking to what I'm seeing. But again, that doesn't give her the right to just use it as an excuse to do whatever she wants, like drink during pregnancy, um, be destructive, be violent to other people. All of that is her choice. She's been choosing to do that. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like her first videos when she was like barely starting before the whole Blueface thing. she seemed like a sweeter person. So either that was a facade or she changed just for the clout, for TV, for the show. So I'm very, very protective of children. So when I see these things, I just think about their future and I think about the damage that the media does to our children by putting these people in the front and center of our society. Like, again, like Cardi B, right? With the music and being a stripper. And it's just, it's just not the right look for our kids to be thinking that's the way to go. That's an option. That should be like no option. It should not be an option to be a stripper, to talk about your wet ass pussy on a song. Like it's just too much. It's too much for our children. They need to be focused on being children, going to school, having a healthy environment, not worrying about anything sexual is pretty much what I'm trying to say here. Sex should not be taking up their headspace until, they're ready for that, to have a family, until they have a job and things like that. It's a little tricky because, yes, they say that women are ready to have sex when they get their period, right? And I completely understand biologically what they're trying to say with that. But we do live in a society where we can instruct our kids, give them better options, educate them about their bodies and how it works, and also educate them about how having children is a very big responsibility. You cannot just go around having sex not thinking that, hey, you may get pregnant, and after you get pregnant, that's a big responsibility. Your life will change drastically. And of course, these are ideals, and our life, our world, a lot of it, a lot of the people that live in it are broken, right? There's a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, a lot of broken hearts, right? But I like to see the bright side of life. I like to think that things are getting better, that if we choose to be a good example for our children, things will get better. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen from one day to the next, but if we all as adults make that decision, you know what? I want to be a good example for my kids, for other kids. Of course, again, we're not perfect, but we can be decent. We can be decent people and do our best to be that role model for these kids. And whenever we make a mistake, do up to it and admit it and change it. That's what makes the leader. That's what is a role model as well, right? It's not about being perfect all the way. It's about understanding, hey, I have something to improve and I'm going to improve it. And as far as prostitutes and strippers and things like that, sexual workers, my mom was a prostitute. So I completely understand what that does to a child, having that as your role model. It's very painful because you know that it's not right. People always look at you funny, people around you. Um, you're kind of like embarrassed. You get put in situations where you become a sexual victim. So it's like totally not a good place for children to be. That's why when I think of strippers and prostitutes and pimps, I'm like, do your thing, do what you want to do with your life, just don't have children. These people should not have children because they're sentencing their children to a life of hurt, to a life of trauma. Maybe they're not even conscious enough to understand that, so they just have kids. But in reality, they should not be having children. They're not the right people to have children. They're not going to be helping their children. If anything, they're going to be damaging them and hurting them. And another thing is that if you're a sex worker, you will not be able to have a normal family, like a husband and kids, because having a family is more of what traditional people do. And you have chosen a job that is not traditional, right? You have chosen a job that's filled with negative energy. And a family is supposed to be the light in communities, supposed to be warmth and courage and good role models and things like that. And again, I'm not trying to bash whatever they choose to do with their life. It's just that they need to kind of like, come on, if you're gonna do that, don't have children. Don't be crying because, oh, I can't find a husband. You're not gonna find one because you have made the choice to live your life this way. Now you have to deal with the consequences. It's like you can't you made your bed, now you gotta lay on it. It's just you can't be crying victim after you have made your decisions like everybody else. We all make decisions. You made your decision to work there. Well, hey, now it is what it is. Thank you so much for tuning in to TC the G Radio. I hope you enjoyed this episode. What are your thoughts on today's topic of conversation? Chrisean Rock. Let me know. Comment, like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay in the loop. Remember to tune in to TC the G Radio Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also connect with me on social media to get more of me and my music. My social media and contact information are on the video's description. Again, thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in and for allowing me to share this time with you. Take care. Saludos.